Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're looking at plant organ system, and this matches the lesson in the AQA combined science lesson 4.2.3.2. Where does most photosynthesis take place? Which part of the leaf receives the most light? And why is a large surface area useful? So for the first question, photosynthesis takes place mainly, so photosynthesis takes place mainly in the palisade mesophyll in the leaf. Number two, which part of the leaf receives the most light? So which part of the leaf receives the most light and is the uppermost part of the leaf? Uppermost part of the leaf that faces the sun. Why is a large surface area important or useful? So leaves have large surface area. Leaves have as much sunlight Yep. So the larger the surface area, the greater the amount of sunlight that the leaf can capture. Now, in terms of this, the link to the specification, so it says students should be able to explain how the structure of root hair cells, xylem and phloem are adapted to their function. Students should be able to explain the effect of changing temperature. So I'll be mentioning these: temperature, humidity, air movement, and light intensity on the rate of transpiration. So basically, how does these different factors impact on the rate of water loss from the plant? So here it says the roots, stem, and leaves form a plant organ system for transport of substances around the plant. Students should be able to describe the process of transpiration and translocation. And remember now, translocation happens in the phloem, including the structure and function of the stomata. Root hair cells are adapted to the efficient uptake of water by osmosis and mineral ions by active transport. So you have two different processes there. Xylem tissues transports water and mineral ions from the roots to the stems and leaves. It is composed of hollow tubes strengthened by lignin, adapted for the transport of water in the transpiration stream. The role of stomata and guard cells are to control gas exchange and water loss. So all of these are very important points that AQA need you to pay close attention to. Phloem tissue transports dissolved sugars from the leaves to the rest of the plant for immediate use or storage. The movement of food molecules through phloem tissue is called translocation. Phloem is composed of tubes of elongated cells. Cell sap can move from one phloem cell to the next through pores in the end walls. Detailed structure of phloem tissue or mechanism of transport is not required at this stage. Transport systems in plants. How are the phloem and xylem adapted for their function? So you can see them here. So these are pictorial diagrams of these two systems or tissues within the plant, which we'll talk about more in a moment. Why do plants need transport systems? They are multicellular. This means they have a higher demand for resources. Their surface area to volume ratio. As organisms get bigger, surface area to volume ratio gets smaller. This means diffusion alone is insufficient to supply resources. So basically, you can't expect that all the resources that the organism need cannot diffuse from the outside to the inside like that. It has to travel through transport systems because of the surface to area volume ratio. We're more complex, whether it's a plant or an animal. What materials do plants exchange and transport? You could pause the video at this point and have a think and maybe jot down some ideas. Okay, here goes. So, plants exchange and transport these different substances. So, carbon dioxide needs to be transported through the stomata to the palisade mesophyll. Oxygen needs to be transported out. Water needs to be transported up the stem through the xylem. Glucose needs to be translocated through the phloem. Minerals need to be transported up the stem either by diffusion or active transport. Transporting plants. So plants have two different types of transport tissue. You have the xylem, which transports water and solutes from the roots to the leaves. Phloem, on the other hand, transports food from the leaves to the rest of the plant. So you can see where the phloem is here. There it is. So you have them within the stem of the plant. And the xylem, you can see it there as well. So the xylem is concentrated more to the center and the phloem around it. Leaf structure. So this is just another diagram as well, showing you the location of the xylem and the phloem. So once again, the xylem is more to the center or inner part of the stem, while the phloem is to the outer part of the stem. And then if we quickly look at the guard cell, it is a bean-shaped cell that surrounds the stomata. Xylem. Xylem vessels are involved in the movement of water and minerals through the plant from its roots to its leaves. Water is absorbed from the soil through root hair cells. So root hair cells are very important, and that's why having a large amount of them increases the surface area, which allows the plant to take up as much water and minerals. Water is transported through the xylem vessel up the stem to the leaves, and this water evaporates from the leaves by a process of evaporation. And you can see the direction of the flow of water molecules. So it's one way only. It has thick walls to withstand pressure. No end walls between the cells like the phloem do. And water and minerals travel up, and it's made of lignin, which is dead cells. Phloem vessels are involved in translocation. Translocation now begins. Hopefully you remember that. We need energy. That is where you get the sugar that is transported to wherever it needs so the plant can carry out its processes. So this is the movement of foods. substances from the stems to growing tissues and storage tissues. So we talk about storage, for example, rice, that is stored as starch, right? Glucose stored as starch, potatoes, and so on. So water and food, because it doesn't travel as a solid, it's a solution or cell sap. Cells have end walls, which is right here, with perforations or holes, and it's a two-way flow up and down the phloem. So properties of these are the differences between them. Xylem carries water and minerals to the leaves. Xylem is made of dead cells. Cell walls are made of lignin. No cytoplasm. It transports water and minerals. It has thick walls and it flows upwards only. Phloem, on the other hand, carries glucose to growing parts and storage organs. It's made of living cells. Cell wall made of cellulose. So you can see in the xylem, the cell wall is made of lignin. In the phloem, it's made of cellulose. No cytoplasm in the xylem, but in the phloem, it has permeable cell walls. The phloem transports food, and it has thin cell wall compared to the xylem, which has thick cell wall. In the xylem, the flow happens in one direction or upwards only, while in the phloem, it moves up and down. So now we look at the stomata. The stomata are these openings at the under, so they're mostly concentrated on the underside of the leaf. And they're protected by guard cells, which controls the opening and closing, or their opening and closing. So in this picture right here, you can see that they're mostly open. So say on a bright sunny day, warmth is present, all the conditions are in order, so they would be opened, and the rate of photosynthesis would be quite high. On a windy day, for example, or a dull day or late evening, you would tend to find that most of the stomatas are closed. So no carbon dioxide or very little would be exchanged to the surroundings. Less carbon dioxide would be entering, less water vapor and oxygen would be going out, so rate of photosynthesis would be low. So whenever you find them open, most of them open, like diagram 1, it means the conditions are perfect. In diagram 2, it means that certain conditions are absent. You could have high humidity, lots of moisture in the air, so there's very little to exchange with the surroundings, and so on. Transpiration. Transpiration is defined as the loss of water vapor from the leaves of the plant through the open stomata. When sunlight shines onto the leaves, the guard cells will open the stomata to flow to allow gas exchange for photosynthesis. However, when the stomata are open, water vapor can diffuse out of the stomata, causing transpiration. So you can see the vascular bundle, which is basically the xylem, or consisting of the xylem and the phloem. The xylem, you can see where water is exchanged to the surrounding because the conditions are right. The stomata is opened, so water will be lost, along with, of course, oxygen. Rate of transpiration is a measure of the amount of water lost per minute or per unit time. The units can vary, but one example of a unit for rate of transpiration could be cm cube per minute. Rate of transpiration is affected by changes such as temperature. So if it's a warm day, rate of transpiration would be high. Humidity, so you can have high humidity and you can have low humidity. So over here, it says when you have low humidity, high water vapor concentration gradient. So that means if you have less water in the surroundings, you'd have more water lost from the plant. So you would end up with high rate of transpiration to the surroundings. When you have high humidity, on the other hand, low water vapor concentration gradient, as a result, you'd have low rate of transpiration, so less water loss from the plant. Air movement. On windy days, when it's windy, you're more likely to lose water from the plant. And light intensity. If the intensity of the light is high, then you have greater rate of photosynthesis, greater rate of water movement through the plant, and as a result, greater rate of transpiration. Next is root hair cell. So the root hair cell, its job is to pick up water and minerals from the soil and take it into the xylem, or sends it on to the xylem, which then transports it up to the leaves, where it is then lost through the stomata. So root hair cells are found in roots of plants. Their role is to absorb water and minerals in the soil. They have a large surface area due to their hair-like projection, which is this part over here, which eases uptake, that is, makes it easier. They also have large number of mitochondria, which provide more energy for active transport. And remember now, active transport requires energy because, for example, it's taking up small amount of minerals from the soil where you have a larger amount inside the plant, so that requires active transport or energy to do it. The cells have thin cellulose wall, a cellulose cell wall, and a vacuole that has low water potential. They also have proteins in the plasma membrane, which allows active transport to occur. I went through that quite quickly, but if you want to, just go back to the start and watch the video again. So here we have 4 questions, each of them values 3 marks. So you can have a go and see what you make of them. So explain why diffusion alone is insufficient for large multicellular plants. And the reason is large plants have small surface area to volume ratio. Diffusion would be too small to meet the needs of all cells. Transport systems are needed to move substances efficiently to all parts of the plant, and that's where the xylem and the phloem comes in. Describe the role of guard cells in controlling water loss and gas exchange in leaves. So guard cells open and close the stomata, so they control that. When stomata are open, gases such as carbon dioxide and oxygen can be exchanged for photosynthesis and respiration. Because even though we haven't stressed much about respiration, respiration requires oxygen. Closing stomata reduces water loss by transpiration. And of course, back to transpiration, plants do, back to respiration, plants do respire as well, not just animals. Explain how the structure of root hair cells make them efficient at absorbing substances from the soil. So root hair cells have large surface area due to hair-like projections, which increases absorption. They have thin cellulose cell wall, which shortens diffusion distance for water and minerals. And they have many mitochondria, which provides energy for active transport of mineral ions. And last, describe 2 adaptations of xylem vessels and explain how these help their function. So xylem vessels are made of dead cells, lignin, with no cytoplasm. This allows for free flow of water. They have thick walls thickened with lignin. This prevents collapse under pressure, especially when they're taking up a lot of water or they contain a lot of water. They have long continuous tubes, which are efficient transport of water and minerals up the plant. Please go through these questions again. They're very important in supporting your understanding of xylem and phloem and the process of transpiration, translocation in plants. Thank you for watching and thank you for visiting my channel again. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And the more people you tell about my channel, the more likely my channel is to grow. And so I appreciate your help in that. Thanks again and have a great